Threads, Zuckerberg's attempt to replace Twitter, gained a staggering 30 million users in its first 24 hours. This is record-breaking growth, and poses an existential threat towards Twitter, and Elon Musk is clearly terrified by it. Less than a year after buying Twitter, his whole app could go down the drain, along with his $44 billion investment. However, behind the surface, this is just the next step of a public rivalry that's been raging for years, and this rivalry is leading to public boycotts, an exploding satellite, and a supposedly upcoming MMA fight. And right now Musk is getting desperate, and this is why he's threatened a huge lawsuit against Threads. Just within hours of Zuckerberg bragging about the massive influx of people joining Threads, Musk launched into claims of industrial espionage and intellectual property theft. In a cease and desist letter, he called Threads a copycat app, claiming that Threads stole dozens of Twitter's top employees in breach of their contract and the law. He's even claiming they took trade secrets and knowledge of Twitter with them. And there's also another former Twitter employee who's been accused of stealing tens of millions from the company during the transition. These are grave accusations which could close down Threads and could lead to lengthy prison sentences for anyone involved. Meta has obviously denied the accusations, saying that nobody from Twitter has worked on designing Threads. But that begs the question, why is Elon Musk then going to such great lengths to stop Threads? Now, by releasing a direct competitor to Twitter, Zuckerberg is going for the throat. He's aiming to take down Twitter, control more of the social media space, strengthen his hold on power, and humiliate his rival. The only question is, will this actually work? It's expected to release on the 6th of July 2023, and Threads is solely designed to replace Twitter. Now, Zuckerberg's hope is that he'll be able to recreate what he did to MySpace all those years ago. With one final push, he might finally be able to monopolize yet another chunk of the internet. And this couldn't come at any worse time for Musk, as the business side of Twitter is looking very shaky right now, and Musk has always known how bad of a business model Twitter really is.
Do you have any regrets buying Twitter?
I think it was something that needed to be done. I'd say that the pain level of Twitter has been extremely high. This hasn't been some sort of party. It's been really quite a stressful situation.
And it's a huge reason for his lawsuit against Threads. But before we continue, I want to talk about a video sponsor. Have you ever Googled yourself and was shocked to see your personal information exposed on one of those public listing sites? Data brokers are making a fortune selling your information to robocallers, spammers, and others who want to learn more about you, like where you live. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura can identify data brokers exposing your info and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Now, brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but if they make it super hard to do, let Aura handle it for you. And you can try Aura for free for 2 weeks using my link. Aura also does so much to protect you and your family from online threats you can't see. It's super easy to set up, and you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. Instead, you get everything in one at an affordable price. So let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online so that you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. You can either let people continue to exploit and profit off your private information, or you can go to aura.com/moon to start your 2-week free trial, also linked down in the description below. But the lawsuit isn't uncalled for. I mean, Meta's approach to business has always been described as vulture-like, as they acquire competitors or destroy them by copying their product. And this exact copycat culture was actually exposed during a US House Judiciary Committee probe, which revealed emails from Facebook employees stating, quote, "Copying is faster than innovating." When asked by the Judiciary Committee whether Facebook ever threatened to clone the products of another company, whilst also trying to acquire that company, Zuckerberg responded,
"Not that I recall."
Which is a little weird considering that this is a fundamental part of what Meta actually is. It all started in 2011 with Facebook check-in deals, which was a direct copy of Groupon and Living Social. Then there was Facebook Gifts, which started in September 2012, a direct copy of the gifting app Karma. Then Facebook acquired Pass in 2013, or Facebook Messages with Email, which was Facebook's attempt to kill Gmail, or the infamous Instagram Stories that was a direct copy of Snapchat. Not to mention Facebook Pope, which was just a direct copy of Snapchat itself, that was launched in December 2012. Some celebrities are already testing the waters. Gordon Ramsay and Shakira, for example, have already made their first Threads posts after being given early access. And there's a lot of reasons for Musk to be worried here, especially considering Twitter's recent history. So what's Zuckerberg's plan? Well, he's been pretty blatant about his ambition to steal Twitter's 250 million users, as the release statements describe it as a text-based conversation app, and anyone who's used the app knows how similar it is, blending in Instagram's aesthetic with Twitter's functionality. And Meta's ultimate power here is that anyone who has Instagram will very easily have a Threads account, as the two apps share the same accounts. and you'll be able to migrate your followers over as well, giving Instagram users a seamless way in. And the app actually shares the name Threads with an early attempt by Zuckerberg to supplant Snapchat. That app is also pretty much identical to what it was meant to replace, but it never really took off, as Meta was forced to shut it down shortly after release, deciding instead to just steal Snapchat's story system and add it to Instagram. But this attempt to steal another app's user base might not fall flat on its face. Zuckerberg made a start with Facebook by undercutting and replacing MySpace. In what felt like an instant, MySpace fell off the map and Zuckerberg was handed a tech monopoly worth tens of billions, controlling the entire world's information. In fact, in an interview with Lex Fridman, Zuckerberg went into his reasoning for the app, saying that Twitter should have 1 billion users, not just 350 million. With Threads, that's clearly his goal here. Although in the same interview, Zuckerberg actually praised Musk's choice to make the company leaner.
You know, I do think that Elon led a push early on to make Twitter a lot leaner. A lot of the specific principles that he pushed on, basically trying to make the organization more technical around decreasing the distance between engineers at the company and him, like fewer layers of management. I think that those were generally good changes.
Firing thousands of workers at once is something they've both got in common, so it's understandable that they'd be able to bond over it. However, there's actually a few reasons why they might succeed with Thread. For one, the integration with Instagram means millions of users have already joined hassle-free, and because Meta has the servers and infrastructure ready, this huge influx of users hasn't really caused many problems for Threads yet. And one of the hidden advantages that Zuckerberg has is his reputation with advertisers as well. Whilst Twitter struggles to bring in ad revenue, Thread can just hook itself into Meta's monolithic advertising machine. If the ad revenue isn't enough, Meta's already announced that Threads will have its own subscription service. It'll work just like Twitter's new verified subscription system, charging users a monthly fee to get the badge. But because it's a new app and it doesn't have the same connotations that Twitter's blue checkmark had, they've gotten virtually no backlash for this. The deciding difference will most likely be celebrities though, as people only use Twitter because pretty much every public figure is on it. If they all start switching to Threads, then it won't take long before they bring their followers with them. And this process is already underway. Almost every notable person is on Threads right now thanks to Instagram. But here's where the problem lies. Threads is designed to cater to a specific demographic that aligns with Zuckerberg's views, and the platform exerts an incredibly high degree of control over users' feeds, censoring or removing any content that doesn't align with its narrative. I mean, Meta's already deleting entire threads on Thread that goes against anything that Meta doesn't like. Threads like this story about cocaine being found in the White House that was deleted after people in the thread were wondering if it could possibly have been Hunter Biden. And even if you follow someone whose opinions haven't been approved by the platform standards, you then receive a warning and a reprimand from the platform's fact-checking system, creating an environment where only certain views are tolerated and dissenting opinions aren't allowed. But it's not just Thread users who should be worried. Elon Musk is in the most danger from this. In fact, Elon Musk desperately tried to reverse his deal to buy Twitter months after negotiations began. Lawsuits were threatened by both sides, and it looked like the buyout might just evaporate after years of waiting. But eventually it became too late for Musk to back out, and after threats of lawsuits from both sides that nearly led to a trial, the $44 billion deal went through. And this was only the start of the chaos. Once Musk was in charge, he began by sacking around half of the workforce in just a few days. From the chief executive and the CFO to the lowliest engineers working on Twitter servers, nobody was safe. This was one of the most dramatic firing sprees any recent company has seen before, and this was simply because the company was just months away from bankruptcy.
Twitter was tracking to lose over $3 billion a year and had $1 billion in the bank. So that's 4 months to death. If we do not cut costs immediately, this is not a carrying, uncarrying situation. It's like if the whole ship sinks, then nobody's going to drown.
And after Elon Musk would go on to fire around 80% of the Twitter staff, this left the multi-billion-dollar app with just under 2,000 employees. But what Elon Musk has done with Twitter recently is remarkable. He's made Twitter a bastion of free speech again. He reversed Trump's permanent ban, exposed the government involvement in Twitter, highlighting the censorship machine that was poisoning social media behind the scenes. And yet this came at a giant cost. Although his silencing of critics from places like Turkey has left some doubt as to how free the app truly is. But nonetheless, there is absolutely no doubt that Twitter is a bastion of free speech in the social media space. And the cost of this was huge. The media, governments, and every celebrity you can think of would be quick to denounce Twitter. And because these big woke companies are now afraid of Musk's Twitter, this has led to over half of Twitter's advertising clients to leave since the takeover. And so when Musk tried to supplement this revenue by charging for verified badges, things only got worse. Originally, this was reserved for celebrities, brands, and organizations to prove prove their identity. The blue checkmark showed people that you were important enough to deserve notice, being the only thing that could separate you from everyone else. That was until Musk changed it into a subscription. Suddenly anyone willing to pay $8 a month could have their own special checkmark. People used it to impersonate brands with wild results, with one user impersonating the pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly, and after they posted about giving away free insulin, the real company's stock fell by over 4%. In general, it soured people off Twitter even more, but more importantly, it annoyed a bunch of celebrities. People with tens or hundreds of millions of followers are what gives Twitter its advantage above everyone else, and so if they are driven away, Musk then has a problem. But don't get me wrong, there's been plenty of other Twitter scandals, like the time that Musk got into a Twitter feud with a disabled employee after he accused them of freeloading and then fired them. He quickly apologized for this and offered the guy his job back, but it still ruined his reputation. And then the most recent scandal became one of the most damaging, was throwing blame at AI companies. Musk announced the amount of tweets people could view was being capped to save on server costs. He said that AI companies in particular have been spamming it with requests for data, something called scraping. According to him, it's put massive financial pressure on the servers to keep up. Along with this, he restricted even just reading Twitter to registered users, being yet another decision in the last year that makes Twitter less usable for the majority of people. Advertisers won't be happy either. They rely on people mindlessly scrolling for hours to get enough attention. And so with hard limits being put in place, the adverts would reach far fewer people. It's unsurprising that tons of competitors have suddenly popped up to try and take Twitter's crown. Truth Social was one of the first, founded by Trump after he was banned by Twitter. Although with Trump considering a return to Twitter, it seems unlikely that his Twitter clone will last very long. Parler, another alternative, came and went, as it suffered from a reputation of extremism, and its remaining audience of disenfranchised Trump supporters left for Truth Social. Jack Dorsey, the former CEO and co-founder of Twitter, then put his weight under Blue Sky, although a lack of public attention means it probably won't ever leave the ground. Then there's Mastodon. While it's gained the most traction of the Twitter alternatives, it's really unlikely it will ever succeed in overthrowing Twitter. But the most shrewd and potentially successful attempt is coming right now from Meta. They've been having nearly as much trouble as Twitter recently, also owing to the decisions of their CEO Zuckerberg, who's poured billions and billions into his failed VR projects, where he literally tried to create his own universe inside of his metaverse. But when it launched, it had the same graphics as a PlayStation 2 game, and this was the final nail in the coffin. People then called the metaverse and its lifeless avatars creepy and unsettling, and they weren't wrong. Facebook use amongst young people in particular has been dying out as well, and it won't be long before the user base starts to dry up entirely. And with the metaverse in a tailspin, and Apple muscling in on Zuckerberg's VR plan, Meta needs a way to stay relevant, and Threads is their gambit. If Zuckerberg can add Twitter to their tech monopoly, it'll keep Meta at the top for years to come. But this might not purely be a business decision. Musk and Zuckerberg have been gunning for each other for years. It began when the two billionaires were collaborating on a satellite program. Zuckerberg wanted to launch a satellite that would increase internet coverage over Africa, and to do this he was using SpaceX and Elon Musk to launch it into orbit. Just as the rocket was about to take off, this happened. Almost immediately after the accident, Zuckerberg made a video in which he bitterly lamented the loss of his satellite. He was clearly blaming SpaceX and Musk for its explosion, although he didn't outright say it. Although even at this point, it's not clear that it wasn't just a publicity stunt. Despite his claims of ownership, Facebook didn't actually own the satellite. They were just working with the company that did. They had also taken out a massive insurance deal on the satellite, meaning they didn't actually lose out. It was more so a public embarrassment against Zuckerberg, ruining his ego, and the feud would carry on from here. A year later, Zuckerberg criticized Musk's worries about AI, all whilst Musk deleted the Tesla and SpaceX Facebook pages. They exchanged memes and insults online, but the real attacks began when Musk took over Twitter, and it was at this point that Zuckerberg realized he had an opportunity to undermine him. We can be sure that he's been celebrating every new controversy coming from Musk's takeover, and unbelievably there's even been talks of a cage fight between the two billionaires, with the two supposedly being in talks with Dana White, the president of the UFC, to organize an MMA fight in Vegas.
Both guys are absolutely dead serious about this. This would be the biggest fight ever in the history of the world.
Whether it will actually go beyond social media though remains to be seen, and I highly doubt this will ever happen. However, despite this rivalry, Zuckerberg and Musk could be in the process of setting up a two-company monopoly over Twitter's niche. Companies often play into a rivalry when together they have control over a market. Coke and Pepsi's famous rivalry is a great example of this. By setting themselves up as the only two choices and only ever talking about each other, they frame themselves as the only real options. And so if the two apps can coexist, then they won't ever have to worry about third parties like Mastodon or Blue Sky. And Threads does seem like a good choice for establishing itself as a real competitor to Twitter, but if it eventually wins out, there could be grave consequences here, as Meta's already got a massive monopoly in the tech world, with with Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram all under their ownership, they control a huge chunk of online communication. They control the flow of the world's information.
The world's population is over 7 billion. Close to 3 billion of us are active Facebook users, and that scale creates power.
And if they can take Twitter's niche and its user base, they'll be in control of the majority of online discourse. Then when you add their attempts in to dominate the VR market, and you can see how big the problem really is. And it's actually for this reason that they can't release Threads in the EU yet, as they haven't even got past the regulators, who will be quick to denounce this. But then the question is, what is Meta gonna do with this monopoly once they get it? The same thing they've been doing already, stealing data and selling it to advertisers. Now obviously Threads comes with the same privacy stripping features as Meta's other apps. It's already being reported that Threads will monitor its users' health data, financial history, contact information, location, browser history, what you search, and whatever they do on the app itself. Every little bit about you.
Would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about.
It's something that Musk has criticized as well, although Twitter does also take on a ton of personal data from its users as well. But with Meta's history of censorship, controlling news stories.
In breaking news this morning, social media giant Facebook has followed through on its threat, restricting people in Australia from viewing news content.
Working with governments to censor all opposition, it makes this development look rather sinister. But what about free speech? Meta's privacy problems, along with their potential for monopoly, are too big for the EU to stomach. Recent changes to the law made Meta's previous justification for taking so much user data unlawful, so now it's doubtful if Thread will ever actually be released in the EU. If they were going to release there, Meta would need to actually ask people whether they want to send them their personal data, but considering how closely Meta guards their legal rights to steal your info, it's highly unlikely that they'll ever give in. Meta was actually just recently fined for over $1 billion by the EU for sending Facebook user data to the USA without telling anyone, which made it clear that the Facebook Meta empire is becoming too powerful to stop. And seeing as Threads will do exactly the same thing as Meta always does, they probably want to avoid another fine for now, because fines are just another cost of doing business for these companies. But it will hurt a lot more if Threads never actually takes off and they get fined anyway. But considering they've already had 10 million users in 24 hours, it's very unlikely that this isn't going to go anywhere. And so by integrating these apps, Meta will finally be able to build a far more detailed profile on everyone. A hidden benefit for Meta though is that they can make it much harder for you to delete your user data, because they've linked the accounts people use for Instagram and Threads, and so you can't actually delete your Threads data without deleting your Instagram account as well. You can only temporarily disable your Threads account instead, meaning that once you sign up to Threads, you are coerced into never deleting it again, giving you far more pressure to stay on the app rather than Twitter. And this is all part of Meta's grand plan for their business model. Enamored with the Chinese WeChat system, Zuckerberg's dream is for Meta to control every part of people's online lives. And as we move into the online world at an ever-increasing pace, this means that Meta will control your entire life. And so with the Facebook app's popularity fading away, Meta's going all in to try and find other apps that they can addict you to. And they've been doing this for years already, stealing Reels from TikTok, stories from Snapchat, and adding both of them to Instagram. They even recreated Craigslist through Facebook Marketplace. And with Threads, they're taking the next step in this vision. They'll be able to steal Twitter's crown and possibly take some of Reddit's audience as well. Their announcement of giving a space to different separate communities on the platform looks just like Reddit's model. And the idea of Meta achieving this and creating a popular super app is really unsettling. I've already made countless videos on Mark Zuckerberg and the metaverse, and it should be clear to everyone by now how dangerous this is when one company can control the entire flow of information around the world. Whoever controls the algorithms today gets to choose the president tomorrow. By controlling more of our digital lives, this would give Meta unprecedented control over what people see online and how they live their lives. I mean, just look at how China's government and Tencent's WeChat censor their people. They actively monitor every person's word and all of their posts on WeChat, scanning for anything that, quote, undermines national unity. And so by working together, the creators of WeChat, Tencent, and the CCP can then keep the majority of their people in this isolated bubble online. And if they never close WeChat, or WeChat makes it incredibly hard to delete the app, just like Threads is doing right now, then they can never escape the CCP's watchful gaze. And we're already already seen people in the West going to prison for saying the wrong things on Facebook. And whilst Meta's plans may be a little less ambitious than the CCP's, they'll definitely take advantage of their powerful new position. Control of a super app would give them an effective monopoly on everyone's lives, and they'll use this data and their super app monopoly to interfere with politics even more than they do now. We've already seen how just control over Twitter's niche alone can influence actual elections. Trump's ban from Twitter, whilst he was still a sitting president for example, showed how easily they can damage someone's future political career, taking away his voice in the online world, the world that is the most important in today's age. Never mind all the censoring of any political stories that went against the Biden narrative. Things like the Hunter Biden laptop story that was actively censored across Silicon Valley by the FBI and multiple other government intelligence agencies. And however you feel about Trump, silencing him was a dangerous precedent to set. I mean, Meta has already banned him from all of their platforms, and so it stands to reason Threads will be exactly the same. A less free, more censored, more controlled, politically affiliated, government coordinated social media site, allowing Meta to silence any political figures who say the wrong things that don't fit with the narrative, and advertisers will love it. More and more people are jumping on board, and the future of censorship and political manipulation won't be based around straight outright bans. Instead, Meta and other social media companies are interested in subtle platform-wide manipulation. Meta will treat Threads just like they've treated their other apps, suppressing anything controversial whilst pushing their own agendas to the front. Their algorithms then guide people towards what Meta thinks is the right answer, allowing you to find the truth all within the confines of what Meta allows you to see. And by using the catch-all term of misinformation, Meta will then continue to suppress things which need to be talked about, just like the Hunter Biden laptop story or the lab leak theory, just to name a few. And if they can succeed in turning Instagram into a catch-all super app, they'll have even more control over what people say. And right now it does seem like Threads is going to take off in a big way. As of right now, Zuckerberg is already bragging about getting 30 million users already. All the major celebrities have joined Threads, people like Kim Kardashian and Mr. Beast. And this means people are willingly switching to Meta's sanitized, controlled platform. They're happy to trade away the freedom that Twitter is actually providing us right now, one of the only free speech platforms in the world, for a more flashier interface with faster loading times and more censorship. And whilst there are definitely issues with Twitter and Elon Musk, Twitter is undoubtedly one of the only bastions of free speech left in the world, and people are happy to watch it burn, which is why Threads is going to take over. And that's why eventually Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and Meta's other apps like WhatsApp will all be consolidated into one super app, and then this super app will then be integrated into the wider metaverse. Now, it's uncertain how the integration will actually work in the future, but it's the next logical step. Regardless, Meta having control of the ways people interact through the internet and the devices that they choose to use doing it should absolutely terrify you. Threads is just the next step for Meta to monopolize how humans interact with each other, and with the Threads app popping off right now, this is a dark sign of where things are gonna go.